A lot of you disagree with me on the video I made regarding tertiary education as one of the minimum entry requirements in order to become a politician holding ministerial jobs, MEC jobs, and the role of the leader of a political party. Don't worry, I'm sure after this video, you're going to understand exactly what I meant. Before we get into the details, welcome to Citizen Concerned, where we remind you to beware of the comrades. I'm Katlego and would appreciate it if you subscribed to our YouTube channel, liked and shared this video with other citizens. I know that there is no way of agreeing with everyone on everything every time, but to be honest with you, I did not expect to see so many of you disagree with me on this particular topic. I think it may be because I did not express the depth of my concern with the issue of qualifications of ministers and politicians. So in this video, I'd like to give you an example of what I would do if I led a political party that won the elections. Let's begin. If I was a leader within a political party, I would make sure that the party has documented screening procedures that can be used to identify and appoint candidates. Within South Africa, I'd like to remind you of what Jan Smuts had to do in order to establish Eskom. He had to entice Hendrik van der Bijl to come to South Africa from America. Hendrik was not only a physicist, but a brilliant one that had to be brought here to contribute to the growth of South Africa. Instead of Jan Smuts just choosing any loyal politician close to him or any family or any person that he knew was close to him, he chose an expert in the field that he wanted the country to succeed in. Talents need to be sought and recruited for the growth of the nation. All countries do this, from the creation of the atomic bomb in America. Many of the people who contributed to that were very skilled foreigners. The Chinese have been doing the very same thing in order to attract the best minds in the world. Our political parties and our government need to do the same. They need to screen the population for the best of the best within the country. Our politicians should be the best that our country has to offer. There should be no doubt about that. The best skills and the best minds should hold the jobs leading the country. And I thought that was obvious.
I would give every student who came to the Lee Kuan Yew school the same lecture. I said, I'm going to share with you the secret of Singapore's success free of charge. And I would tell the students that if you implement this secret formula, your country will succeed. And I capture the secret formula with the acronym in English, MPH. The M stands for meritocracy. Meritocracy means that you select the best people to run the country. And what brings many countries down, especially in the third world, is that when it comes to selecting the finance minister or the economics minister, they will give their jobs to their brothers, their cousins, their uncles, their relatives, and not to the best people. And Singapore did the exact opposite. In Singapore, the jobs were given to the best people. And in the case of the Prime Minister of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong, when he went to study in Cambridge University, he was the top student in the class, if not in the university. In fact, his professors were so impressed, they said you should become a mathematician because you'll become a world-class mathematician.
Singapore is a meritocracy, and these men have risen to the top by their own merit, their hard work and high performance. If all the 300 were to crash in one jumbo jet, then Singapore will disintegrate.
Without them, none of you would be enjoying life today in Singapore. I say this without any compunction.
Lee Kuan Yew in his own words on meritocracy and governance on Channel News Asia.
I think our system of the public service is a good example of meritocracy, for sure. Like what LKY said, essentially is best man for the job.
I'm a beneficiary from a system which chooses people according to their capacity.
These days, it looks like politics is a career that one goes to when they just want an easy way of making $1 million or more a year. We understand that employment prospects are not as high as they used to be in South Africa, but that should not be an excuse to accept any Tom, Dick, and Harry to govern our nation or its ministries. In China, the rise in unemployment led to the government jobs becoming more attractive and millions of people gunning for them. But instead of picking any person, many Asian governments require applicants to take exams as part of their screening for new government workers. Take a look at this.
A recent poll by online job search portal Job Korea showed 4 in 10 job seekers in their 20s or 30s have prepared to take the civil service exam.
There's a necessary evil for us to get the right level of qualification in order to qualify for a job.
If you don't decide to have a system based on merit, what is the alternative? If you say I decide on the basis of who my family connections are, that would be even worse.
The practice of meritocracy, I think, is a very fair system.
Just like in Asian countries, South African politicians and government workers find stability and a steady income in government work and in their work as politicians. But just like in Asian countries, why don't we seek out the best of the best to fill those roles? There are millions of unemployed graduates in South Africa, some with work experience and some without. Many of them could do a much better job in government and in politics than a lot of the people who currently hold those positions.
Outstanding men in civil service, the police, the armed forces, chairmen of statutory boards, and their top administrators.
These people come from poor and middle-class homes. They come from different language schools.
Singapore is a meritocracy, and these men have risen to the top by their own merit, their hard work, and high performance.
So the Public Service Commission, among its many roles, is to also identify and select scholarship holders, which is one route of talent identification for the public service.
Running a ministry or department or country is different from running your personal business where you carry the risk of whether the business succeeds or fails. You are managing the resources of a nation, taxes of citizens. I don't know about you, but I would sleep better at night knowing that the taxes I worked hard to make and pay were under the custodian of a person who knows what they are doing. Anyway, back to if I was running a political party. Within the screening procedure would be detailed the following. ID documents of all party members and leaders must be verified. The individual must definitely be South African, period. No negotiation about that, nothing to expand on. Next up is that the party must never appoint people that have been convicted of corrupt activities. People that were involved in corruption, bribery, theft, fraud, sexual assault. And this is not because these people are still criminals. It's simply because we should have that standard as a nation in order to have a sense of trust within the system. Anyone who was declared a delinquent director or anyone who was impeached like MK Party's John Hlophe or police officers with criminal records are people I would try to exclude from the party by all means. There are certain issues that I believe do not qualify as criminal records that disqualify someone from politics. For example, first-time offenders of speeding or drunk driving are the kinds of crimes that I think would be too petty to disqualify someone over. Now, the next thing is the qualifications, which is what we were talking about last week. First of all, I think a party should be divided into the various sectors covered by the actual government. Before the party is even in government, the party should have different ministries that are covered by the government. Things like the Department of Health, Finance, Department of Home Affairs, of Labor, Department of Basic Education and Higher Education, and so on. This is to make sure that there is specialization. I would not want to have this thing where we can swap people around from different ministries as if they are jacks of all trades and masters of none. Within the free market, we don't have a habit of going from being a doctor to a farmer in 5 years, from being a farmer to an accountant in the next 5 years. Now, why do we have that in the public sector? If in the private sector we care about experience, expertise, specialization, and mastery, why are we so carefree about these things when we are managing all citizens' resources, when we are running a department that affects the whole country? Why? Just because we are used to government departments being run like spaza shops does not make it right at all. Just because the ANC has been engaging in this unprofitable behavior does not mean that other parties should use it as an excuse to lower the standards on themselves.
A concern that could demotivate them, essentially, but also that could lead to them not being able to carry out their work. And one of the issues they raise is leadership management in the South African Police Service. So they feel there are leaders who are promoted, for example, to particular position that are not capable to function in those positions in police management. And they're saying this is because there is no policy on promotions. That's their view. And therefore, so you have people, for example, who are occupying rather important position in the investigative function of the police, who are really not well capable to be in that position. And there's a suggestion of coming firstly with a promotion policy, but also an independent panel that is going to foresee that process of promotions.
We can't have that, so we need specialization. The people who get to be leaders of those different departments must have certain qualifications, and those qualifications are what some of you had a problem with on the last video on a politician's qualifications. I think I understand what the problem was. I mentioned a diploma, certificate, degree being the entry-level qualification, and some people seem to assume that it means that that is the only method of entry. When it comes to expertise, everyone knows that there is no degree that trumps experience. So when I say diploma or degree, I don't mean that it is the only or the best method of measuring competence. Competence does not only take into account qualification, it also takes into account experience. But what we need is some form or sign or proof that indeed your politicians are competent. I believe that for every leader to be chosen, for every elevation in position, there should be an interview that follows something similar to an entry examination. The examination should be done in order to identify what the individual's capabilities are. The people who come to lead the parties will have to have general knowledge about certain things before coming to lead the party, and consequently the communities and the nation.
China's evolving political change has been somehow ignored by many. In fact, without much fanfare, China has established a system of meritocracy, or what can be described as selection plus election. Competent leaders are selected on the basis of performance and broad support through a vigorous process of screening, opinion surveys, internal evaluations, and various types of elections.
I believe that one of the things we need to get rid of is this thing of career politicians. Once we start having career politicians, we will have people who are simply content to collect a salary and not pursue any of the things that the citizens are concerned about. I would prefer to have people that come to grow the country for the better, and these must be people that come to pursue a specific goal, understanding that they will serve the party for a specific period and then open up the space for someone else.
In Singapore, we have young generals. In fact, by 50, it's pretty much mandatory, you're out. And so it is in Singapore's interest to be able to use their talents and deploy them somewhere else where they can help society.
Career politicians are among the biggest problems we have in this country and everywhere else in the world. They don't know what they are here for. They create their own agendas unrelated to the dreams of the citizens that elected them. Anyway, when it comes to the exam, I think the potential leaders must have knowledge related to the industry that they wish to serve. Hence, there should be proof of in-depth knowledge about the subject matters involved in that industry. If we say you're going to be the leader within the party and you're heading the department that corresponds with the Department of Basic Education, then you need to at least have a diploma or degree that is related to teaching. But that is not all for the degree and diploma holders. You will have to have a lot of experience in the education industry with contactable references. That is vital. You will write an entry exam to make sure that you know what you're doing and what you're talking about.
This is much in line with the Confucian tradition of meritocracy. After all, China is the first country that invented the civil service examination system, or the Keju system. Today, China practices, not always successfully, but on the whole successful, meritocracy across the whole political stratum, criteria based on poverty eradication, job creation, local economic growth, social development, and increasingly, environmental protection are all key criteria for selecting and promoting officials.
If you do not have a diploma or a degree, but you have experience within the industry, then it will be easier for you to answer the questions, right? Experience is better, but we will need to measure your abilities and your capabilities still. Within South Africa, there's what they call recognition of prior learning, wherein your years of experience can be measured and assessed in order for you to get a certificate or a diploma. The main issue of concern to me is that the individuals within our government should be skilled and knowledgeable within the fields that they have chosen. We don't want politicians that are only good at talking, dancing, and singing. One of the biggest problems we have is that we have a bunch of university activists who terrorize universities, and from there they simply join a political party simply because they are able to raise their voices and create mobs of protesters that will go and riot and doi in the name of social justice. But they have no idea what work they are doing. These are people who have degrees, but they have the power to rise to being ministers when they have no idea what they're doing. These are people who never worked a day in their lives.
A good example of this were the profiles of China's new leaders elected at the 19th Party's Congress. 6 of the 7 of the top leaders, members of Standing Committee of Political Bureau, have run provinces or province-level municipalities, many of which, in terms of population or GDP, are equivalent to many nations combined. Indeed, the Chinese system of meritocracy today makes it inconceivable that anyone as weak as George W. Bush or Donald Trump could ever come close to the position of a top leadership. It's not far-fetched to claim that the China model is more about leadership rather than showmanship, as in the West.
We are in South Africa, where people also get certificates and accreditations by simply paying someone. So that is why I think that an exam and an interview prior to getting government jobs is a way to screen the applicants. The exams should obviously cover logic, common sense, and general knowledge matters, as well as the specific subject matter questions for different departments. I hate the idea of politicians learning on the job and the idea of seeing dumb, stupid fools in charge of the country doing dumb things and seeing them assume that they are getting away with it because they are smart, when it is simply because they are connected or within the right party. The idea of government jobs that are won due to exams are not a new thing, and I would much rather have a political party that also works that way to attract the best people capable of passing a government test. If I was to become a leader of the country, I would also make sure that all government jobs would be for the most competent people we have, not for the loudest, dumbest, most connected people we have. Remember, this is not about degrees and diplomas, it's about capabilities. If someone can prove through the test and the interviews that they are capable, then it does not matter whether they have a degree or not. Experience always wins against a degree in the working environment. The message I am sharing is that we should have a minimum entry requirement. Look at what China does to make sure that they get the best.
But in China's Confucian tradition of meritocracy, a state should always strive for what's called a 上上策, or the best of the best options, by choosing leaders of the highest caliber. This is by no means easy, but efforts to this end should be ceaseless and continuous. China's political and institutional arrangement and innovation so far have produced a system which has in many ways combined the best option of selecting well-tested, competent leaders. From a Chinese point of view, the nature of the state, including its legitimacy, has to be defined by its substance, that is, good governance, competent leadership, and success in meeting people's needs.
Do you see what I mean by saying we need a minimum entry requirement? Look at what's happening in this country.
I mean, look at what's happening in local government. Part of the reason why there's so much dysfunction there is that some of our public officials don't have the necessary skills and capacity for the positions that they occupy. There was an assessment compiled, I think, by SALGA at some point, the South African Local Government Association, that found that 62% of councillors had been unable to use basic computers to enable the passing of crucial municipal budgets.
During the President's question and answer session, some of the things he said, acknowledging that the skills deficit was most prominent at local government level, and that, coupled with corruption and often a lack of money, leads to a very toxic state of services. So what do our future municipalities look like? Can they pull themselves out of the problems they face?
Do you see what I mean when I say we must have a minimum entry requirement? Government should not be for everyone. It should be for the best of us. These are not fully formed ideas. I know I still have to read more on the issues like this, but logic tells me that that's how we should do it. To help groom the political candidates, I think a political party should also have projects that correspond with all the different ministries. Imagine with all the political donations, if a political party was to fund projects, clinics, for the people to show that the money is being used for good instead of campaigning and hiring musicians and dancers. Tell me what you think. Just imagine if they took their politicians, their candidates, and actually trained them in the Ministry of Education, of Health, of Finance, and all the different ministries that make up the government. Growing up, we had to decide which career path we would like to pursue, and the parents that could made a way to pay for their children to study and graduate from that chosen career. It was only the very rich children who could afford to be studying engineering one semester, psychology the next, law the next year, until they finally decided that they wanted to be accountants. The money, the resources permitted them to try this, fail at it, and try something else. But this here is a country. It is not your parents' resources. It is not a platform where you're going to try the Ministry of Education, fail there, go to the Ministry of Defense, fail there, and be given yet another opportunity to try something with the Ministry of Health. We cannot afford to pay for you to learn on the job. We would rather you have the experience or qualifications that give us the confidence that the ministry and all the perks we are giving you while you work in that ministry are not going to waste. When we look at your CV, we can sleep in peace knowing that our resources are in good hands.
You need to understand the big scheme of things. It's not simply, oh, you get a cushy job because you served in the military. As a general, you have lots of responsibility. You are overseeing hundreds of millions of dollars in budgets. And so you have proven leadership ability and also responsibility. If they were appointed over someone else more qualified, we have a problem.
And one thing we need to avoid is this thing of, yeah, but some people can do it without the experience or qualification. Yes, some people can drive cars without licenses, but other people will kill people and destroy infrastructure if we put them in a car without a license. So what should we do? How do we determine who is fit to drive without a license? We set an objective standard that the best can pass through. Failure to do so will result in us showing favoritism in our judgment. Yeah, you look like you can drive without a license. How about you? Nah, go get a license first. For fairness to exist, objectivity should exist. For objectivity to exist, standards need to be set. I mean, even after getting licenses, some people drive better than others, right? Just as after getting 3, 5, 10 years of experience in the mechanic industry, some mechanics are simply better than others. But both are given the opportunity based on their experience and skill. The entry into the role was according to a set objective standard that no one can fault and blame for being racist, sexist, or age specific. Imagine if we as South Africa appointed ministers from opposition parties simply because we know that the DA has the best person for this job, the EFF has the best person for that job. We are not going to give it to the ANC because they don't have the right person for that job, instead of simply giving positions to our party members only. When I say we should have minimum qualifying criteria to become government officials, I don't mean specifically and exclusively certificates, diplomas, and degrees. I guess this is all my fault because clearly I underestimated our ability as people to misunderstand each other. Usually, I try to cover all the angles that I can think of, but for some reason, I didn't realize that people would think I meant what I didn't mean. Becoming a public servant or a government worker should be reserved for the best of the best. We should have a way to test potential government workers to make sure they know the work that they are going to be required to do. If it is a job to hire a mechanic for the municipality, we'll remove all the fuel in the bakkie and see if you'll be able to diagnose the car. Remove a spark plug and tell you to identify the problem. Ask you to service the bulldozer or something like that. That is a job I don't think we have to demand a certificate for because experienced mechanics know how to identify the skilled and knowledgeable mechanic without looking at their certificates. If you want to be a maths teacher in high school, you should be able to pass a mathematical exam relevant to high school with a mark of 100%. So as a science teacher, you must produce your certificates, but with that certification, you must write an exam to show that you know the subject you will be teaching. What do we have in South Africa? We don't screen ministers, MECs, or government workers for past violations of any kind. We don't screen for technical capabilities. We don't screen for educational capabilities. We don't screen for skills. We don't screen for anything. Are you ANC or DA or EFF? Great. Long live the revolution. Long live. Amandla, awethu, let's rescue South Africa. You have the job, MEC. You have the job, Minister. Here's your million, here are your blue lights, and here are your bodyguards. All the best. No, no, no. That does not work for me. That's it from me today, guys. Let me know what you think. Did I explain it better? Do you still believe I am asking for too much? If so, why? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video, share it with others, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Katlego. This is Citizen Concerned. And until next time, beware of the comrades.